When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all my children now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
Hey, this is Mike Bordick, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest is a retired professional baseball shortstop who, when you mention his name, most fans will think of his great defensive play throughout his career. We are going to dive deep into his sporting career, but also everything else he does from his broadcasting career, but also, like I said, go back in time, as we like to do, with his baseball play in college and the Cape Cod League. But also, how can we not talk about his time in Oakland and learning from the great Tony LaRussa during his time in Oakland, but also his time in Baltimore, both as a player and broadcaster. But like I said, he's a man of many hats, so let's not forget his work with League of Dreams. Let's welcome Mike Bordick. So, Mr. Bordick, how the hell are you?
I'm really good. How you doing?
Can't complain. So,
All right.
Obviously, You have had an interesting career, that's for sure. And obviously, and I'm sure you hear this often, but I grew up watching you, man.
All right. That's awesome. You don't look that old.
Well, I'm 39 and
All
I've
right.
always been an Orioles guy.
Oh, cool.
And obviously, I know the whole story, but it's cool to see and talk to one of the guys that I grew up watching in terms of the game.
Oh, cool.
And well, did you ever think or were you surprised with the success you had on the field and off as well? Because you've been in the broadcast booth and all that fun stuff as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'll say, yeah, I've been blessed. There's no doubt about that. I think the good Lord opened up some doors for me along the way. I was never shy about working, and I think a lot of times if you can develop a skill set, which I was fortunate to be around some good people that taught me the right way to do things, even as a kid, I think my dad mostly instilled like work ethic. He introduced me to sports. I played all sports, so I think back then anyway, kids were more athletic in general. So I think I carried that with me when I got to college, and then I was developed, I think, in college. I was at a really good program up at the University of Maine. We had a lot of success back in the early 80s. A legendary coach that really kind of stayed on me about the fundamentals of the game. And if you can't execute the fundamentals, you're not going to go very far in the game. And then as I got stronger and grew a little bit, I was able to build off those fundamentals more athletically, and it carried over, and it really translated well for me in professional baseball. I think coaches, especially managers of teams, ultimately want players they trust to know where to go in cutoff situations, trust to know the situation in a ball game, when to maybe push it first and third situation, trust to know where a guy's going to be able to throw the baseball, in crucial situations. And I think, that boded well for me. I wasn't the biggest guy out there, but I knew how to play the game, and I knew where to throw the ball and how to run the bases and actually handle the bat. I think that's kind of what got me in the door, the ability to lay down a bunt, the ability to execute hit and runs. And for Tony LaRussa, quite honestly, when I first broke into the big leagues, I had a sponsor, Tommy Reynolds, who was my minor league coach in single A and double A, and it was the lockout year in 1990. And Tony LaRussa said, I need somebody that can catch the baseball. Who do you trust in the minor league system the most to catch the baseball? And he brought my name up. And really that was, I guess, the big door opening for me to get in front of Tony LaRussa, have an opportunity to play for him. And, I did go back down in 90, but I ended up making it back up in 91. And there were some injuries that gave me more opportunities, but got a chance to play and show my consistency out there.
Yeah, and obviously I'll go back to the high school and college in a minute, but since you brought him up, Tony LaRussa, there was a story I heard, and we know everything online is true, but you, towards the end of the year of 90, when you had your cup of coffee per se, at first in the big leagues, you asked Tony about possibly going to instructional league to try to improve on some of your skills. Because I think when your name is brought up, most people talk about your defensive skills. And he thought it was a good idea, I guess, from the offensive side of things. But you ironically got the call back up for the World Series team. So what was it that you were looking to improve on with the instructional league?
Well, there are a couple things, to be honest with you, I didn't play a lot when I got called back up in September. I knew when I got sent back down that there was just a great opportunity in front of me. It's funny because I didn't really tear it up in AAA. To be honest with you, as an insecure athlete, like I think a lot of us were, we don't seem to thrive on the confidence that a lot of athletes have nowadays. I did really well in double A. I got promoted to triple A, but I just could never get over that hump or find a nice rhythm offensively. And I was I would hit like 230, 240 in AAA, and I never ever personally thought that was enough. Tony LaRussa said to me, you know, I just want you to catch the ball. I just want you to catch the ball. I'll put you in situations where you'll feel you'll help this team. And I did. I was able to lay down some bunts and, like I said, hit and run, hit behind runners to make me feel like I was had a little worth, I guess, as an offensive player. But when I got sent down, Tony LaRussa said to me at the end of September, he said, listen, we're going off to the playoffs. You're not on the postseason roster. Thanks for your help. You know, it was fun watching you play, whatever. And I said, listen, I'd love to go down to instructional league and make a hitting tape with Rick Burleson. And Rick Burleson was the great Red Sox shortstop, the guy that I kind of idolized, I guess, growing up in New England to some extent. And I thought it was pretty cool, you know, to be able to go down there and possibly work with him on my hitting. And he and I think, were kind of similar kind of players. We had a little hair across their butt and wanted to, you know, prove people wrong and do as well as we could. And he helped me down there to a point, I think, offensively. He worked really hard, and he eventually ended up, I think the next year, became the hitting coach for the Oakland A's. So it was good, I think. And I didn't do it intentionally to try to show Tony LaRussa that I worked hard. I just wanted to genuinely try to make myself as good as I possibly could. And to be honest with you, that never ended throughout my career. Even when I was 37 years old playing, I was always trying to find ways to try to make myself better. And so anyway, it granted me, there you go, another opportunity. You know, because Walt Weiss got hurt in the postseason or the playoffs against the Boston Red Sox. He got taken out at second base. I think it was Ellis Burks, a little comebacker to Rick Honeycutt. He flipped it second. Weiss gets taken out, hurts his knee. And I think it was that night they called down to Arizona and instructional league to ask if I was still there. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I am here. And the next day I was on a plane heading to Oakland to be a part of the World Series roster. So that's kind of how that worked out. I did end up playing in 3 games, got in at the end. I was most nervous I'd ever been playing the game of baseball, I think, in my whole life, actually, going into the World Series. Unfortunately, we got swept by the red-hot Cincinnati Reds, but, you know, it was eye-opening. It was incredible. I think overcoming some fear and anxiety that I had, really helped me take steps forward in my career.
Well, what do you think's more difficult? Because you've seen and done everything pretty much, except for, I don't think, coaching. But what would you say I should ask? What's more difficult, pinch hitting or becoming in as a defensive replacement?
To be honest with you, I can't say pinch hitting. I may have done that one time, and that was in the minor leagues. I came in as a pinch hitter under that pre-mentioned Tommy Reynolds brought me in Double-A, I think, late in the game to pinch hit. And I think being a pinch hitter is pretty easy. You know, you look dead red and you turn and burn and try to, you know, do something good for the team. I think defensively, there's a little bit more pressure, you know, to be able to make a play at the end of a ball game. Because typically, especially when I was a younger player, the game was on the line, and it was tighter ball games. He'd pinch hit for Mike Gallego or Weiss, and then I'd have to go in and play defense and have to try to make a play. So I think there's a little bit more pressure there, but I think through the course of repetition, you know, I don't know. I guess you liken it to maybe a field goal kicker. They kick so many times. You think, how can they get in there and make this game-winning field goal? And they do it time and time again. I think most baseball players, most athletes, they have so many repetitions under their belt. As soon as they can overcome that anxiety, maybe a little bit of fear that's along with it through self-talk, a lot of times I just hung my hat on my preparation. I said, listen, you did your ground ball work today. You threw, 50 times across the diamond, same old thing, and try to settle into the moment of each pitch. And I think that kind of really helps. It helped me definitely kind of settle in. Now, if you ask Mark McGwire, who was my first base at the time, he'd say I never settled in because I was all over the place, firing balls everywhere. And thank God Mark McGwire was over there playing first base because he helped when I was younger. He helped me out a lot over there. As a matter of fact, he called me radar because he just didn't know where the ball was going to go. So he had to make some big time plays.
Nice. Now, obviously, you said that you played multiple sports. Like you played football in high school, never leaving the field, and
Yeah.
obviously you played baseball and everything. But when did you realize baseball was your sport?
When I got recruited to go to the University of Maine, to be honest with you. I mean, I always loved baseball, but to be honest, football was my passion for some reason. Um, I just liked hitting guys. I liked trying to run away from guys. I liked, pursuing guys and making tackles. I didn't mind getting hit. I'm probably feeling the results of it nowadays, but I just I love the game. I just remember as a kid always playing with my younger brother and, tackling on the bed, trying to make great catches of the NFL. I love following the NFL back then as a kid. So that was really my passion. Unfortunately, I never grew. I was just a little guy. If I played probably in college, I probably would be busted in half. Who knows? I would have gotten hurt really bad because college players, even up at the University of Maine, I was like, wow, thank goodness I didn't play football because, even up there, guys are monsters, they're aggressive. There's a different look in a college player's eye, and it obviously transcends into the NFL as well. But so I think, getting recruited and seeing an opportunity to continue to play sports, and baseball. I love baseball too. When I got up there and saw a group of guys that had just come back from the College World Series, all like-minded, all wanted to go back there again. It took a minute, less than a minute, for it to say, "Wow, I want this. This is awesome." And I sunk my teeth right into it. Loved every minute of my collegiate career, and got to go to the College World Series 2 out of 3 years.
Nice. But besides the college play, what was it about playing in places like Cape Cod and all that made it so special?
Well, I mean, Cape Cod, that legendary league, still is to this day the best college talent. I felt so fortunate to have an opportunity to go there. It's what's interesting is my freshman and sophomore year, I never even thought of Cape Cod because I was playing in arguably the best Twilight League in the world, I think. It was called Portland Twilight League. We had players from the University of Maine, some other local colleges, and then some guys that had gone to college, older players that wanted to continue to play the game of baseball. So, and it was so much fun. It was great intensity playing the games. There were a lot of awesome athletes playing, and but there was a looseness and just a genuine sense of this is why we play, to have fun. Now, I mean, the guys took the game seriously, but it really became embedded in me that sport is fun. It's got to be fun, or you shouldn't even play it. And I had a blast those 2 years. And I'm not saying I always had fun playing the game because I appreciated the work. But when I got to Cape Cod and you saw this jump in level of play, it was a little intimidating. Like, once again, you challenge yourself, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how good these guys are. And what was kind of cool about that experience was I wasn't that good there. I played some defense, I made some plays, and it just so happens, and it kind of, I think, proved how I went through the minor leagues too. You never know who's watching on a daily basis. Even these kids that play in high school and college now, you never know who's watching, and you might catch somebody's eye, and they might give you an opportunity. And that's what happened to me in Cape Cod. I was only there for a couple of weeks. I was hitting about 200, and next thing I know, I have a nice weekend series. And JP Ricciardi, who was a regional scout for the Oakland A's, came over and said, "Hey, are you interested in signing?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And it didn't take much longer, and I was on a plane to Medford, Oregon.
Flight 209er, you are cleared for takeoff.
Roger. Huh?
LA departure frequency 123.9er.
Roger. Huh? Request vector. Over. What?
Flight 209er, clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Well, obviously you have a different perspective in playing multiple sports growing up, eventually specializing in baseball, but also as a father. So do you think in today's aspects that sports are sometimes too specialized with kids and stuff growing up?
Absolutely. I think it's a travesty what they've done to youth sports. Kids specializing at such a young age. I mean, and if you look at all the numbers, the facts, there's overuse injuries in every sport. Kids get burnt out by the time they get to college because all they've done is play one sport for multiple years. I think it's really unfortunate. I really do. I think even baseball, I had the pleasure of kind of helping coach under Buck Showalter. I'd go down to spring trainings, and all he looked for were multi-sport athletes. He just had a better sense that they were more athletic. They weren't just one-dimensional guys. And I think, unfortunately, this next generation of players, even though there's some unbelievable athletes out there, don't get me wrong. I mean, baseball players nowadays are freaks. They're big, they're strong, they're fast. But athletically, I don't know. I just felt like we were better athletes back then because we knew how to move our body in space. And I think now, I think we're doing our kids a disservice. I don't think they're enjoying sports as much. I don't think they are hearing different voices from coaches on how to be taught, how to learn different disciplines. And I think the injuries are starting to click up too, just because of overuse, especially in baseball. I mean, oh my gosh, I finally was able to convince my son, who's a junior in high school now, to not play fall baseball last year. He had some arm problems over the summer, and he just took a break. And I said, thank goodness, because for years now, he's played in the spring, he's played all summer, and then played in the fall. And throwing a baseball is arguably the most unnatural thing you can do as an athlete. And these guys need to take a break. They really do, both mentally and physically. And I think playing other sports helps provide that. I think it's a nice release to play a sport, even if you're not that good at it. But I think, unfortunately, like everything in our world nowadays, money has taken over, and money has lured people into these travel teams and, perfect games. And I'm not saying there aren't benefits, but it's changed the game, and I don't think for the better. That's for sure.
Well, you have, if I heard correctly, 6 kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, and like you were saying, your son who was taking a break and everything else, I know I heard another one of your sons you mentioned in a different conversation, who played lacrosse and baseball and whatnot. But in general, did you think your kids caught a lot of shit in terms of extra pressure because dad played professionally?
Probably, yeah. No, I think they did. I think the expectations are kind of unfair. And I also think that, especially my middle son, who was arguably my best athlete, I think he kind of took it personally, in the sense, not that he was being compared to me, but that baseball took me away from him a lot of his youth. And I think it's unfortunate. One of the sacrifices that I think all professional athletes make is that, they have to be away from home so much. And even for me, even when I was home, all I was thinking about was either my offer the night before, the error I made, or how I'm going to prepare for this pitcher tonight. Is my arm going to be okay? Is my knee all right to go out there? How am I going to overcome this stuff? So you lose some of the precious times with your kids. And I think some of my kids really felt that. But I also think on the field, my kids got compared to the crap I did on the field, which is kind of unfair. And I know they felt that for a little bit. I think my youngest son is one that's been able to avoid it because I'm so far now out of the loop that the comparisons, it's hard unless you find older guys like you maybe around. And you're not even that old, but some people don't even know that I played. So I'll go to his game and they could give a crap, right? They just say, oh, yeah, he's a pretty good player. And so I like it like that. And he's kind of been more on his own compared, I guess, to the other kids.
Yeah, where he can actually just play and enjoy it, and
Absolutely.
There's not that extra pressure. But you were talking about it earlier, and I'm gonna throw a name out there in a second. But because obviously there's a lot of routine and preparation and stuff to stay sharp, and be as good as you were defensively. But, and there's always that from guys I've talked to. Like, I've had an opportunity to talk to Buck Showalter one time and love to talk to him again because he's such a smart guy. And there's Jason Kendall and such. And there's the game within the game. When
Sure.
do you think you were the best across the board for your career? Because obviously there's the mental side of things, but also the physical side. So is there a certain point you go, oh,
Yeah.
for shits and giggles, all right, 96, 97, 98, let's just say, there was a certain time period that was your best career-wise?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I had some pretty good years. I guess in like when I came over to the Orioles, I think 98, 99, 2000 were pretty good years. And that was kind of total package. I was playing some pretty good defense. Offensively, Camden Yards was still small, so I was doing some things at the smaller Camden Yards. But to be honest with you, as I got older, like when I was 35 and 36 years old, defensively, the game started slowing down for me. Offensively, it was always hitting a baseball was always a struggle for me, and I was such an inconsistent hitter. I may have had a stretch where I was consistent, like I said, I think 98 through 2000, but I was always up and down. I was very streaky as a hitter, but defensively, I don't know. There was a couple years where I could see hops better off the bat. I focused on the contact point of the bat. And I still felt like athletically I was moving around well enough to, play like I did 5 years earlier. I may not have moved as well as I did when I was 25, 24, 25. But I still felt like I had enough wisdom now in the game where I could anticipate better. I studied swing pass better. I knew the hitters in the league more and their tendencies. So anticipation was a big part, and also knowing my own pitchers. So in that aspect, I just felt like I had a better grasp of how the game was played, how balls were coming off the bat, what I wanted to do with the ball, how I would pursue balls, knowing my arm strength, because my arm definitely started. I lost some velocity towards the end. There were times I could cut it loose, I guess, but I was better at just understanding my pursuit angle and how I was going to get rid of the baseball to make an out. And in my mind, I always thought if I could get a glove on a ball, then it's got to be an out. So I don't know. Felt like I kind of mastered it for a couple of years. I had a nice run defensively where I had a streak with like 110 games without an error.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then I was just, I don't know, it felt like, wow, I know what I'm doing out here finally. And I was, at the end of my career. And I think there it harkens back to the repetition thing. I've had so many repetitions under my belt now that part of the game was slowing down for me a little bit.
And that comes back to that whole where you cross. Obviously, like you said, as you got older, physically, it might not have been the same, but you were sharper here in your head, in the gray matter. Okay, in situation and studying and all that stuff. And yeah, I think there was something about, like you said, with the 110 errorless games and like 543 chances, something like that. I'd have to look that up again. But the name I wanted to mention that really seemed to help, at least you admitted to it, and said this guy was key for me, was Harvey Dorfman, who was a sports psychologist.
Absolutely. Yeah. Best, man. Wrote some of the greatest mental game books. He actually has a book called The Mental Game. And to this day, I could probably turn around. I know I have a pamphlet of his that I go to. I'm not going to say daily now, but it's just a go-to manual about the right way to play the game, how to, discipline yourself, proper work habits, establishing routines, understanding how to calm yourself down in pressure situations through breath work, hanging your hat on your preparation, trying to do things as perfectly as you can. So not only could he do it in his words, but he spoke the game of baseball as well as any baseball psychiatrist or psychologist that I ever met. And I think a lot of people have tried to emulate him. I think he's had a lot of pupils that have come up and are a big part of baseball nowadays because they've expanded their, rosters, I think, to incorporate the mental part of the game. And I think, he was one of the first that ever broke in, and people trusted to kind of go ahead and get in my headspace a little bit because one of the biggest things baseball players, especially back then, was stay out of my head, man. Because first of all, you don't want to get in there and figure out what's going on. But he knew how to communicate with baseball guys. He spoke their language. He studied players. He was a sports guy growing up. Not only was he a psychiatrist, but he was also a coach and an athlete as a player. So he knew all that stuff all along, and he was just an incredible communicator. He helped pick up so many pieces for me and so many other players in this game of baseball. I hear his name mentioned a lot. Even nowadays, people talk about him and his books. So, yeah, he was a huge influence for me. There are times, and I've said this many times to kids I talk to, that the minor leagues, in my opinion, it isn't necessarily a test of what you can do to perform on the field, but it's a mental test. Can you overcome the long bus rides? Can you, at least back then, can you handle not eating food and being starved out and still performing the next day after a 16-hour bus ride? And how do you handle the ups and downs and the criticisms and people hooting and hollering at you in these podunk stadiums, So it's definitely a mental challenge. And when you take on the failures that this game is inevitably going to bring, because Ted Williams famously said, you fail 7 out of 10 times, and you're a superstar in this game. It is just built around failure. You get knocked down, you try to pick yourself up and go back at it again. And Harvey found a way to get the most out of players that were constantly knocked down. And I give him all the props in the world. I've been blessed with some of the great baseball minds. Harvey Dorfman's definitely one of them. Tony LaRussa for the opportunities he gave me. John Winkin at the University of Maine for giving me an opportunity up there. My dad as well, Tommy Reynolds, who I mentioned. So, you can't just, have one person. I think it takes a village, right? And you better be open-minded to try to learn as much as you possibly can. And I tried to learn as much as I could from everybody I played the game with, coaches, managers, players, especially, but there were a handful that really stood out. Harvey Dorfman was definitely one of them.
Yeah, because people don't realize, I don't think, because all they see is what you see on TV or at the stadium and such. They don't realize the grind that it can be, both physically and mentally, especially if you make the big leagues, 162 games, then if you make the playoffs, and just they don't realize that. And I think it's gotten a little better now. Obviously, you would know because you were involved with the Orioles from a broadcasting standpoint. You might get extra days off here or there now and such. So they don't realize that grind, I don't think, which makes, for me at least, it makes it more special for the guy I grew up idolizing in Ripken, doing the streak that he did.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yep, because of that grind. When you think about all that, how do you think? And you came over to Baltimore in '96 and took his spot at shortstop when he moved to third. But how do you think he was able to have the streak? Because yeah, it's a game, but you're going to have your bumps and bruises from playing, the travel, just like you were saying about the eating, that, just all these different things that people don't think about. How do you think he was able to do that for so long, day in, day out, to be a player?
We talk about Harvey Dorfman and that mental game. I think Cal was able to separate himself because of his mental capabilities. Because I just know from a personal standpoint, the things that I had to endure, how I literally had to talk myself into, convince myself that I could get out of bed to go play a Major League Baseball game that night. I mean, it is not easy. And Cal, there were days, especially at the end, when his back was bothering him. There were times after that one brawl with Seattle where his knee got dinged up. There, when I would watch him foul a ball off his foot and know from experience how painful that was, and just wish he could just walk off the field and go sit in an ice tub. You know, and back then you could take guys out at second base, or at least try to. So Cal was very athletic and would have to jump. He'd get hit. Now he was a big guy, so he'd drop a knee on a guy, so they didn't come in there quite as often. But diving, getting twisted up, swinging, just all kinds of stuff that could go wrong. Shoot, I blew my ankle out jumping up for a ball from the outfield and landed on second base. And I laid there and had to be carried off the field. I mean, Cal spent his whole life around a base, and he never blew his ankle out or anything like that. So I think there's some luck involved, but I know for a fact that he was mentally tougher than anybody and could somehow convince himself that he was the guy for the job that night. And that's what he did for however many years. I mean, just so amazing to me. I was in awe and honored to have played with him and see how he went about his business, because not only was he, obviously a great player for so many years and didn't miss a game for so many years, but he was great at interacting with the fans, his fan base. I think he felt like there was a responsibility there for him to give back. And man, oh man, at the end of his career, when there would be 40,000 people in a stadium, and all 40,000 were waiting for him at the end of a game to sign autographs, and he would do it. I mean, enough said. I mean, the guy was just amazing. And not only just the mental side of it, but he was a great teammate. He helped me when I first came over to know the pitchers, to know positioning. We talked shop all the time, and I love that about Cal. So he had a great passion for the game, and mentally he was head and shoulders above everybody else, and that is a record that will never ever be broken. And good for him, because I don't think there's anybody that could handle
that. I still kind of tear up, even if the few times I've been close, haven't had any interaction. Just that little key comes out at me. I mean, like, and rightfully so. But, and I don't want to make this all about him, but obviously his son Ryan had a career mostly in the minors and stuff. He's now coaching with Rick Dempsey's school there in the Baltimore area.
I worked with him, absolutely.
So, how much talk about pressure that Dad had, but what kind of pressure you think Ryan had? And I asked you about your own kids, but what kind of pressure you think Ryan had?
Yeah.
Because of the stature that Dad had, especially in their hometown of Baltimore.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, you can't measure that. And it's unfortunate that, fans and people, put that kind of pressure on kids. And Ryan was a great basketball player too, and probably could have had an opportunity to play Division I basketball. Chose baseball, and he gave it a great shot. I think he got up to AAA with the Orioles, and is an awesome instructor and a great communicator. I'll tell you that right now. He and I have worked together on a baseball broadcast, Baltimore Baseball Tonight. He and I have worked together at clinics, giving lessons to kids. He obviously cares a great deal about the game of baseball. He knows how to talk the game of baseball. He knows how to communicate with all age levels. He's a special guy. He might not have been able to put it together like his dad on the baseball field, but you talk about a well-rounded kid, grew up the right way, with incredible respect for the game. Yeah, Ryan Ripken's a class act.
I got to meet him one time I think it might have been Wilmington, Delaware, before he made the move up to single or double A, and chatting for a few minutes. Like you said, he's very well articulate.
Yeah.
Being in the Philly area in Northeast, we get that gut feeling about people, whether somebody's good or they're full of shit or whatever the case is. Ryan, and I'm not one to kiss Tookus at all. Ryan, you got that feeling that everything you said there, that, hey, this is a good dude, solid dude.
Yeah.
Good communicator. I mean, and I think that goes back to when you meet people like that, and has nothing to do with famous parents or not or anything. Just all that being said about Ryan, it goes back to how well of a job his mom and dad did with him.
Sure. No, absolutely. You know, I always go back to the character. I think character of a person really, says so much. You can kind of see that with Ryan, just incredible character, great work ethic, does things the right way. And yeah, I mean, it comes from somebody. And Cal and his wife at the time had, Ryan, and they brought him up the right way. And I think he was around some really good people, right? I think the group of Orioles that he probably grew up with had an impact on him. I think his grandfather, Cal Ripken Sr., had a great impact on him. Billy Ripken, he ain't no slouch either, right? So
No.
He's around great people that are well respected, and there's a reason why they're well respected, because they just have incredible character, passion for the game. They respect other people as well, and I think Ryan falls right into that great Ripken legacy.
Yeah, there was just something about him, and hadn't, like I said, had nothing to do with the name, but just the character you can feel off the guy. And I hope to be able to sit down with him like this at some point. But when you signed in Baltimore in '96, and you were there several years, then came back in '01, '02 after some time with the Mets. But what was it about when you hit free agency there? And all right, I think I'm going to go over here with Baltimore, because I'm sure you had some options, and obviously Oakland's been famous for not wanting to re-sign people.
Yeah, well, Oakland, yeah, they were very quiet throughout my free agency, and I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to look at that. I don't know that if they really wanted to sign me, they might have at least called, but they never really did at that time. Even though Sandy Alderson came out and he was like upset. It's like, well, geez, you could have called and said something like you really wanted me to come in there, but they didn't. And the only other suitor was Kansas City was interested, so we had some talks with them. But yeah, Baltimore just kind of knocked my socks off. Not financially or anything like that, but just the feeling like they really wanted me. They basically kind of said that they were going to do this with or without me, and they thought I was the right guy for this job. And the Orioles had prior success, and to be honest with you, after coming up with the Oakland A's and going to the World Series in '90, then back to the postseason in '92, and coming up with that organization, and I just wanted to be around winning again. And that was the sense I got, that if there was any team that is on the verge of a dynasty, it was the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, they had so many great players, with Rafi over at first base, Alomar at second base, Cal being the infield, Brady, B.J. Surhoff, Eric Davis, Jimmy Key came over, Mike Mussina, Scott Erickson. I mean, let's go. Really, hands down, in '97, the best team, if you ask me, in baseball. It's unfortunate that we got beat by the Cleveland Indians in the postseason, but I expected a run and wanted to be a part of that success. And that was a team I thought was going to hoist a trophy. And I think every player wants an opportunity, to make it into the postseason and have a shot at the World Series. And the Orioles were that team. Now, I didn't think that the Yankees were going to do what they were going to do, and they ended up taking over the East, for a number of years. And the Orioles never quite got back there. But we had some awesome teams with some great players, and I don't regret anything. I mean, I love the fact that I got the chance to play in Baltimore. I've lived here now since I came over, and yeah, this is our home, and we love it. A couple of my kids were born here, so it's been a great experience and a great run in Baltimore. And now I'm hoping that these kids that are out there now win the World Series for the Orioles. And it seems like they made a couple good moves here recently to head more in that direction.
Well, before we talk about that and the broadcasting, what is it about? Because I notice it here up in Jersey and the Philadelphia region and such, that a lot of guys tend to like to stay and make it home after their career, mostly in hockey and some in football. Yeah, at least even with the current guys. But what is it about the Baltimore region that you and your family said, you know what, this is home, this is where we're gonna start our roots and keep our roots. And what was it about staying in a region for you?
Well, I think a temperate climate was one thing. My wife and I are both from Maine, so the Maine winters never end. At least around here, like even now, you can really feel like spring's coming. In Maine, it's locked down dead of the winter, and it's going to stay the dead of the winter right through the end of March. So no, we like that. But we also, when we came over to Baltimore, we had a young family, three young kids, and we signed a 3-year deal. And very rarely in the game did it afford us that opportunity to kind of establish, our roots a little bit. And we said, well, let's make this our home for as long as we can. And, when you have a young family and kids start school, networking starts to begin, and this happens and that happens. And next thing you know, 25 years later, got a couple more kids, and kids are graduating to high school, and you're still working in the same town. So that's how it really started. I think we didn't want to just be here for a little bit and go back to Maine. We wanted to stay here and establish this. So our kids had a little bit more stability, because in baseball and any sport, really, you're looking for that security. You're looking for a little bit of stability instead of each year going a different place. And that was kind of our life for the first, 12 years of our professional career, until we were able to land that 3-year deal in Baltimore. And thank goodness it happened, because we've been here ever since.
But obviously, post-career, I mentioned you got into the broadcasting side of things. You mentioned you did a little spring training work with Buck Showalter and such. But what was it like for you being a former player, now broadcaster? Did you think you had a little more respect because you played the game? And obviously you had a fortunate opportunity to work with guys like Jim Palmer and such, who was, another legendary Oriole.
Yeah. Oh man. No, I talk about, well, that's another reason to feel like I'm blessed, because when I did get an opportunity to go into the broadcast booth, I was working with Gary Thorne, who's another Maine guy. He was calling hockey games when I was up there at the University of Maine. Jim Palmer, obviously, Jim Hunter, Fred Manfra. I mean, just incredible personalities that were there. I've been there for so long, and they taught me so much about broadcasting. As a matter of fact, Jim Palmer, who's still a great friend, one of the first things he said to me was, handle this just like you handled shortstop, your preparation. Just be prepared and everything will be great. And I took that to heart, and I showed up, 3 hours before a game. I took my notes, I did my interviews, I learned the other team. And when the bell rang game time, I just tried to be myself. I think it was a process, though. I probably wasn't good. I know I wasn't good early on, and thank goodness they kind of let me develop. But I started feeling really comfortable, and I think I found my little niche by acting or talking more like a coach and not being a critical guy that used to play. Explain why or what happened, explain the athleticism on a certain play. I love talking about the Orioles back then because J.J. Hardy was a shortstop, and he might not have been the flashiest guy, but man, could he get the job done? And I love talking about him, Adam Jones, Nick Markakis, Matt Wieters. There's just a lot of great guys to talk about and kind of promote. And I enjoyed talking about other teams too, because I think as a broadcaster, yeah, you can be somewhat of a homer, but I think you have to support the game in general. And if something really good happened on the other team, man, you better promote those guys because they're Major League Baseball players too. So I had fun explaining things and just trying to be a coach to the audience. And I know in Baltimore, especially, there are a lot of great fans that know the game of baseball, but to maybe be able to point one or two things out, like, wow, look how Chris Davis got his eyes behind that ball. That's how he dug it out of the dirt. Kind of more fundamentally sound things that I like to bring to light, to show that, yeah, these guys are great athletes, but they do things so fundamentally sound that's why they're so consistent and good. So it was fun doing that. I enjoyed it when I did.
Now, I was just recently, I guess about 2 or 3 weeks ago talking with an author because I'm a avid reader and history guy, and talking with him about a book he did called Called Up, talking about guys coming up and telling their story, whether they played one game or 3,000 games, throughout their career. It doesn't matter. But he mentioned that there was an old story back in the day with the 70s Orioles. And I'd love he may or may not tell you, but in Jim Palmer. And this is why I thought of him, because of the nickname Cakes. But there was a story that he had heard from one of the guys he talked to for the book. And so he gets called up, meets Earl Weaver. Hey, and Earl was as tough as they came. Obviously, everybody knows.
Yeah.
So apparently he did nothing major, but he made a stop or two. Good defensive player too during one of his first games up. So anyway, the next day they come to the ballpark, as the story goes, and there was a cake like on a table in the locker room, kind of where everybody would have stuff or put food and just different things. And supposedly this cake said, welcome X, like kind of like it was but it was a rib, and it was sour cream for the cake. And they tried to, it was something they did with all the rookies. Hey, this seems a little funky, smell it. They come up and do the whole.
Right.
But he heard somebody chuckle, so he didn't fall for it as he went over.
Okay.
But he realized that it was a rib because he heard somebody go, to snicker a little bit, who was in the locker room. But were there good stories like that throughout your career? Like, because nowadays everybody is so PC conscious, and I mean, it's a different world, and for the most part, good reasons. But was there fun to be had to keep your sanity when you were coming up and all like that?
Oh my gosh! Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's all we did is have fun. I mean, some things I probably can't share with you, but
maybe over a beer we could, but
yeah, there was a lot of hazing, that I think was good, done in good, clean fun. I saw one time Carney Lansford, who was one of our team leaders when I came up with the Oakland A's, who I love very much, just an incredible player. But he was our team captain. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he confronted Ricky Henderson to make sure he played hard every night. I thought they were going to go to blows every now and then, but if you were a rookie, you couldn't ride on the team bus. You had to ride with the media. There were two buses, so a media bus and then the the team bus. And if you were a rookie, the only way you could get on the team bus is if Carney invited you over. And eventually, as the season went along, he would invite some young guys over, but you would be hazed pretty much. I mean, not like beaten or anything like that. You might have to drink a couple beers, sit back. But I remember this one time, some of the rookies were up in September, and Carney brought them back to the back of the bus. And Carney he looked at this young player's tie, and he said, "What's up with that tie?" And he goes, "Man, my grandmother, she got this for me because I made it to the big leagues." Carney said, let me look at that tie. The kid took the tie off, and Carney cut it into tiny little pieces and put it in a cup and handed it back, and had a couple funny words to say as he handed it back. That poor kid was heartbroken. And he also had another rule where if you fell asleep on the flight, if you were a rookie, he would turn his World Series ring around and whack you in the forehead. Vince Horstman, who was a young lefty we had, fell asleep, and oh my gosh, for like 2 days he had to pitch with the World Series ring on his forehead. He hit him so hard. Oh my gosh. So little things like that. But there was a lot of fun. One time remember Jay Johnstone?
Yeah. He played in Philly too.
He used to pitch, I think, with the Dodgers, played for a while, and he was like a funny guy. And it was like the day before I got sent down in 1990. We were in Yankee Stadium. And being the naive young player that I was, Jay Johnstone, he says, "Hey, Mike, I'm in town. We're doing a show about the Oakland A's, and one of my former teammates, Rick Honeycutt, he used to mess with me all the time when we were with the Dodgers, and he said we were going to try to play a prank on him, and I've got this horn, and it's sitting up behind the turtle, and I'm going to be doing an interview with him, and I'd like you to just pick up that horn and just blow it as loud as you can, and just watch him, scare him to death. And I was like, hey, whatever, man, to be on TV, young player, yeah, I'll do it. So sure enough, there's Jay Johnstone, Rick Honeycutt doing an interview behind batting practice. And I sneak up there and I grab this horn and I blow it with all my might, and it's full of powder and it just blows all in my eyes. And I couldn't see for a week. And next day I get sent out. So, I mean, I guess I made it on his bloopers reel. I didn't think it was that funny. And what got me too is when I was in the training room, trying to rinse my eyes out with the trainer, Tony LaRussa came in and he's like, MF and Jay, he goes, I never liked that guy, man. That stuff's not right. And of course, when I saw the tape, Tony LaRussa's in the background laughing his ass off about what had happened. So I got a little upset about that too.
Is it perfect? No, but I don't see you coming up with anything. And that, people, is what grinds my gears.
Rib within a rib. That's great. I know a lot of guys in wrestling, the professional wrestling business, and the one not sure, they probably did it in baseball, because all the wacky hours and stuff they keep. If you fell asleep on a plane back in the day, they might shave an eyebrow off.
Yeah.
So you would get to, so I'm sure shit like that in baseball, and there's ones about the set your shoelaces on fire.
Yeah,
there's things but the eyebrow ones I always laughed at is because, everybody, especially if they were traveling a group, especially in the 80s, early 90s, they'd land, find a gym to work out, all that stuff, go to the building, and nobody would smarten them up. They only had one eyebrow. So it'd be they would go into they get to the building, go to the locker room to go to the bathroom, all that shit, drop their bags, go to wash your hands, look up in the mirror. They only had one. I mean? So it's, do I go out and just do I let it grow back, or do I shave the other eyebrow? What I mean? So I don't look like a complete goof.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's shit like that to pass the time when you're on the road though.
No,
but the one thing I wanted to bring up before as we close out is, and I think it's a good thing, is the League of Dreams that you're involved in. So what is League of Dreams?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Well, it's an incredible passion of mine. It's God's work. There's no doubt about that. So League of Dreams gives special needs kids of any special need an opportunity to play baseball and softball. At least that's the conduit we have. We've branched off. We're doing some different things. We've developed a STEM program, an adaptive version that's giving kids opportunities to get into the science, technology, engineering, and math. So we're opening up doors for these kids to they can chase their dreams, just like I got an opportunity to. The president and founder, his name is Frank Kolaric. His son is Adam Kolaric, who's still playing Major League Baseball, just signed a big league deal with the Angels, just headed off to spring training. Frank Kolaric played in up to AAA with the Oakland A's, and that was his calling. And he started this about 20 years ago. I've been with him almost every step of the way. And, it's a local nonprofit, but we're giving a lot of kids opportunities to, kind of chase their dream out on the field. We have it's volunteer based. So if we get a group of 20 kids, whether they be in wheelchairs or if we're over at the Maryland School for the Blind, we'll get a baseball team to come out there. Sometimes it's a collegiate team. We've done events with the University of Maryland, Baltimore Community College. We've done that as well. We just had a huge event in Catonsville Community College, and we had the baseball team, soccer team, and the lacrosse team all come out and be a part of helping our clinic. And I'll tell you what, the kids, they feel like they're part of their peer group. The volunteers learn how to communicate with these kids so they're not uncomfortable anymore in these type of situations. It's a win-win for everybody. I think the volunteers take it out in their community and make an impact. The parents are incredibly thankful. After every event, if I'm not crying, the parents are crying. So thankful that they're giving their kids these opportunities to enjoy a sport for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And it is the most rewarding and fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life, to be honest with you. And we're looking to try to, bring more kids these opportunities. So always looking for sponsorships, donations, and it's leagueofdreams.org if any of your listeners, care about helping the special needs population, because we help every kid. And I'm telling you right now, it's not just kids in wheelchairs. It's not just kids that are blind. It's not kids with just cerebral palsy. There are a lot of kids that are having some really serious problems right now, whether it be coming from single family homes, whether it be child abuse, whether it be neglect, drugs, alcohol. All those things fall into the same category. And we help all kids try to get out there and release and give them opportunities to enjoy the game and be around their peer group. And we do other sports. We do swimming as well. Like I said, soccer. So we fill it up, and we're full. Our hearts are full every time we put on one of our events.
Please, because you guys, and I know you're in the Baltimore region and do this thing. You're only about hour and 20 minutes from me because I'm in South Jersey. It's literally a stone's throw from where you guys are at.
Yeah.
Please, I'd rather say this while the red light's on and we got a record of this, because I mean it. Let me know if there's anything I can physically come down and do when you start up in the spring and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You have my, obviously, contact information. Please. That sounds like such a great thing. If there's a chance I can come down and help you, I would love to do so.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that kind offer.
Yeah, please say, hey, we got this, that. Let me know if we can make it work. I want to come down and do something with you guys.
Very cool.
But what's next for you, baseball season? What's going on for you, Mike?
Well, my son is a junior in high school, so I'll be enjoying watching him play and the summer as well, following him around. And so that's one thing. I give lessons and do clinics and go to high schools and speak on behalf of the Baseball Warehouse, which is a local baseball establishment that
Rick Dempsey's place, correct?
Yeah, Dempsey has one. Matt Morris is the owner. So we have 4 areas here in Baltimore. One I go to is over in Owings Mills. Dempsey's down in Columbia. We have a couple up in Pennsylvania as well, Red Lion, York. So, just trying to encourage kids to get out there and play the great game of baseball. Where I guess the draw is that it's all former professional players that are coaches that help these kids learn the game. Troy Stokes is one of the coaches. You mentioned Ryan Ripken. So there's a nice handful. Rick Dempsey does clinics. We have guests that come in. We did a great clinic with Jose Canseco. How about Goose Gossage came in to do a clinic? He's been a regular for the last few years. So it's an awesome opportunity to teach kids the great game of baseball, talk to them, about the process, and encourage them to keep the grind going and, not to get too down, just enjoy. And I love talking to parents too, because I can kind of relate, I think, I've been in every seat now as a parent and even as a player, to help them kind of make it through. Because sometimes it's kind of tough, right? When you see a kid out there and, through good times and bad times, just trying to keep supporting your kids.
Right on. Mike, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One quick thing I love the name of your show, the Crazy Train Radio Show, right? And,
yes, sir.
I'm sure obviously inspired by Ozzy Osbourne's great song, Crazy Train. Was it? Or it was
actually it wasn't.
Patriot? Oh, okay.
And I didn't realize that until after the fact. But here, I'd like to joke. I have the 3 or 4 working brain cells, and I'm like the monkey with the cymbals at times, as I like to joke, and I go, oh, wait. And I thought about, obviously, Ozzy after the fact. But the first introduction theme was a Jeff Healey song, the blues artist. So,
okay.
But somebody said to me, hey, dum-dum, what about Ozzy? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I know the Patriots used to come out to that, but when I was a kid, growing up in Winterport, Maine, population 3,000. One of my best friends his dad had a pizza store. We used to call it the Dive, and we'd go in there, and the first thing we'd do was put Crazy Train on and shoot a game of pool and have a pizza.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah, you got it, man. Thank you.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
Hi, I'm Bill Ripkin, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.